Hello, these are artificial intelligence-generated voices, but the words read were created solely by humans using artificial intelligence for some of the writing, as well as Microsoft's Clipchamp to generate the voices and the podcast recordings.
Welcome back one more time for this series. I'm Mike Prasad from the Center for Emergency Management Intelligence Research. And this is our last ESF #Prep for the Kids podcast episode. Today, we're finishing up our series with the Emergency Support Function number 15, External Affairs, and why this emergency support function is so crucial for children and families, especially during a crisis. ESF number 15 is all about keeping the community informed and ensuring that emergency messages reach everyone. Whereas ESF number 2, Communications, is all about restoring and maintaining the communication systems themselves, especially for use by emergency responders, this ESF is about sending out timely and actionable crisis communications to the public. But, as we'll discuss, it's not enough to just broadcast a message. We need to make sure children and their families actually understand what they're being told and know how to act on it. Joining me, as always, is Patricia Frost, Vice Chair of the National Pediatric Disaster Coalition. Pat, thanks for being here one more time.
And as always, thanks for having me. You're absolutely right. Emergency communication can be life-saving, but only if people understand what to do. Not only does that mean paying close attention to children's needs, it also means providing information with children and teens in mind. With the right information and training, children can take action and help their families in crisis. For example, over 11 million children in the U.S. serve in the role of being the primary English translators in multilingual families. That role becomes critical during an emergency, especially during incidents where officials choose not to put out crisis communications to the public in all of the languages needed.
Exactly. And it's so easy for officials to be in a rush and to overlook this. And while almost 80% of Americans speak English at home, emergency managers are responsible for 100% of the people they serve. We often assume the parents or caregivers will be the ones helping children through an emergency, but in reality, a lot of children may be the first ones interpreting alerts for their families. They might be the only ones in the household fluent in English. That is why it is so important for youth with mobile devices to have disaster alerts on them, and kids have a clear understanding of what they mean and what their family needs to do.
Which is why ESF number 15 can't just be about sending alerts. It's about ensuring those alerts are in plain language, simple enough that even younger kids can follow along. During a disaster, if a child tells their parents what's happening, we want them to clearly understand what to do and where to go or stay. Officials should send that critical information in languages familiar to their constituents and their families. In many cases, it can be about empowering children to help protect themselves and their families.
Welcome back. This communication really has to be reinforced at multiple levels, right? I mean, we're talking about messages through mobile alerts, press releases, social media updates, and community announcements which may or may not be translated by mass media outlets such as television and radio. When emergency managers prepare these public crisis alerts, it's important they remember to also address children's needs directly. Messages like child and pet-friendly shelters are open or school meals will be available can give families peace of mind and make planning easier.
Exactly. Those press releases and resident updates should mention specific resources and support for children, such as safe spaces for families, child nutrition resources, or mental health services for kids affected by the crisis. Preparedness messaging can also be tailored to address the specific needs of children, such as having familiar items in go kits, or knowing what to do if separated from family. These details make a big difference for families with children and ensure no one is left out of the response and recovery. This information can be included in flyers sent home with kids, made available at local libraries, included in community fairs and outreach events, and of course posted in the different languages on the community's websites. Officials need to make the effort to really translate their crisis communications. Do not just rely on web tools to do the job. They make lots of idiomatic mistakes.
And it's also a chance to include preparedness messages that resonate with kids. Schools, childcare settings, and youth programs can reinforce these messages. If kids are more familiar with what to expect during an emergency, they will likely feel less scared and more empowered to help. We've seen that children who understand emergency procedures are often a comfort to others around them, as well.
Yes, exactly. Kids who know what to do can really help spread calm. So ESF 15 is not just about communication. It's about shaping messages that resonate with the entire community, including children. If we include kids in emergency messaging, like teaching them what different sirens mean, how to recognize symbols for shelters or safe zones, and how to dial for help, we're setting them up to respond confidently. By doing this, we also reduce anxiety in children, which helps families manage stress during difficult times.
Right, so it comes down to ensuring all of the elements of our communities are covered by these crisis communications, especially those often overlooked, such as kids. Preparedness messages and press releases focusing on children's needs and safety help families plan and create a more resilient community themselves. And governmental officials have to be first in line to message to the public. If they don't, someone else will fill in the gaps, and not always with the best intentions. These days as well, we also need to teach children about the digital world they live in and how to tell good information from misinformation.
I'm glad you brought that up, Mike. There are a number of great resources and digital initiatives designed to address just those challenges. Today, teaching digital citizenship is part of disaster preparedness. And these conversations are just as important as teaching children about seat belts to ensure children stay safe and secure in a crisis. When children feel prepared, we all benefit. It is critical for emergency managers to be first, be right, be credible, express empathy, promote action, and show respect. All of those will quickly fill the gaps. Gaps where without those official messages, the misinformation and bad actors can fester and take over. There are some great free classes on building better crisis communications out there. And we have included some links in the notes for this podcast.
Well, Pat, that wraps up our series on the 15 U.S. emergency support functions and how they can help address the needs of children. We encourage our listeners to share the Coalition's emergency support functions and children's #Prep for the Kids series with their colleagues and use the shareable social media to support local preparedness efforts, especially for public information officers or PIOs. In fact, this entire podcast series was designed for emergency management PIOs. Let's keep driving for more inclusive communications and remember that resilience starts with our youngest community members. Stay safe, and please share this series with your community's leaders and communicators.
Please visit us on the web at npdcoalition.org. Our vision is to support the development of a unified medical and health emergency management community to prepare, respond, and recover from emergencies and disasters.